Hello, my name is Mercy. You can call me Masango Rodrick Warakula. So I think that Mercy is so easy, it suffices. I'm an Anglican priest in the Diocese of Harare, and also I'm a lecturer at the National Anglican Theological College of Zimbabwe, where I do teach eco-theology and biblical studies. And my major areas, it's Old Testament and Classical Hebrew. Yeah.
Hi, my name's Damon Kandawire. I'm a minister in the United Church of Zambia. Currently, I manage a hospital in the district of Mwansabombwe here in Zambia. And I also chair the Department of Environment. I oversee issues to do with reforestation and climate change in the church. Thank you.
As you might know, that Zimbabwe is, its economy is based on agriculture. And because that it is based on agriculture, we haven't been receiving enough rains for the past 2 years now. And us not receiving the rains for the past 2 years, we are in a severe drought as a country. We are facing shortages of food because of these droughts, which has been caused with, in my own thinking, that these are clear signs that climate change is a reality. It is on the grounds because the weather patterns have changed. Because even in a time, there is a time whereby you would even ask yourself, is the rains come? And then you'd find that things have just changed. Because of this drought, and us not having rains, this has also now contributed to another factor which we talk of electricity, whereby we have one of our major dams, which is one of the hydroelectrical dams in Zimbabwe, which supplies electricity in Zimbabwe and Zambia, because the dam, for it to run, is turbine so that we could generate enough electricity. Because our water levels within the dam is low because of the rains which we are not receiving. This has contributed also to affect us, our industry, which relies on electricity, our households, which relies on electricity, and even in terms of the food which we are talking about that we have to eat to sustain ourselves. So all these things, they are coming as a result of climate change.
Well, Zambia, like Zimbabwe, is experiencing a lot of water shortages. Like Mercy just mentioned, we also depend on, for electricity, we depend on the dam, which is Lake Kariba. It's a man-made lake, but gets water from other sources like the mighty Zambezi River, from which Zambia takes its name. But you find that the water levels have now gone down, that we are not able to generate electricity to supply the entire country and also to supply to other countries like Zimbabwe, I must mention. The unfortunate thing is that because the generation of power is inadequate, we have what is known as load shedding, where in the country you'll experience total darkness because the company cannot produce the power. So, for example, in urban areas, you have an area experiencing 12 hours of load shedding. That implies that for 12 hours, a certain area will not have electricity. That has impacts on the economic activities because certain economic activities depend on electricity, and they cannot do that because of the water levels that have gone down. And I was listening to some of the statistics. The engineers from the Zambia River Authority were mentioning that the water levels have reached the lowest since 25 years. Meaning that in the next few years, we will not be able to even generate power. And Zambia entirely depends on hydropower. This is one of the effects of climate change. And maybe just to continue talking about agriculture and climate change, especially in the Zambian context, you will find that 18 to 20% of Zambia's GDP is dependent on agriculture. And like I said, most of these, maybe 80% of the farmers in Zambia are subsistent farmers. These are maybe even women-headed households. These are poor families. And if you look at now, they do not have rain. What happens to the 18 to 20% GDP? Definitely it has to go down. And definitely the poor becomes poorer. And I always have a question when I begin to talk about climate change. I always ask my friends out there that if you look at the power dynamics, if you look at the causes of climate change, who is doing more harm to the environment? Is it the subsistent farmer who's farming for the food of the house? Is it the commercial farmer who's producing food to sell? Definitely it is the commercial farmer. And the commercial farmer is likely not to suffer more, but the subsistent farmer who is farming for the family and the household is going to suffer more than anybody else. Yeah, that when we talk about climate change and the effects and the impacts on a community and a rural community in the face or perspective of a global south country, you'll find that it is not easy for a country to bounce back. When we are hit by a natural disaster, be it a catastrophe caused of climate change or anything else, it's not easy to bounce back because we do not have the resources. And when we talk about climate mitigation and climate resilience, you know, it sounds so theoretical and sounds so nice because yes, somebody will say, why haven't you built a hospital which is climate resilient? But the issue is, where are the funds going to come from? If you talk about bouncing back, how are you going to bounce back when you were actually trying to, you were trying to survive, and then in the midst of trying to survive, you are hit by a natural disaster? How do you bounce back? It's never easy.
As it stands right now, if our country does not receive aid in terms of food aid, then I think I would like to use the term we're in a catastrophe. We are in a catastrophe, a serious, massive challenge in terms of our food production. And having experienced it on my own, first-hand information, having gone to those who have been affected with the cyclone, and talking of those who have been affected with the cyclone, but I cannot only talk of them alone, but I talk of the generality of our own country, you see. And when I had just joined, Damon was just illustrating about that when we are hit, especially as countries in the global south, particularly Zimbabwe and Zambia, as we are talking about, you see, when we are hit with these natural disasters, there is no other way that we can even talk of us recovering, you see. When we are talking of climate change, it's very unfortunate, you see. When we have one of your countries, a superpower like America, which denies, you see, categorically that climate change is a mirage. And then when they say that it is a mirage, what is it that they're trying to insinuate? When we're having this kind of crisis. So these are some of the issues that need to be put into perspectives. And this September, in the United States, and we are very happy that we have got religious movements which are organizing strikes to try to put to the government, you see, for them to understand that the climate change is a reality. It was very unfortunate when the United States pulled from the Paris Agreement. When they pulled out from the Paris Agreement, for reasons that I'm not going to talk about, I will talk about that in another forum. But we want the United States to be there. The United States must take the responsibility, it being a superpower, than them putting money into military. Military in a country where there is no war. Why is it that they want to put more money into things that are unnecessary?
What do you see for the future of both of your countries in relation to all of this in terms of the short term and the long term?
For me to answer your question, Regina, I will answer your question from a religious perspective. You see, as a religious speaker, we remain hopeful. One thing that we have is hope that things they would change. But then you would find that in as much as we might have this hope, it comes a time whereby that people, they tend to lose the hope which they have. And then there is a need of real issues being addressed. So in the long run, our thinking is that first, for instance, we need to have mechanisms which addresses the issues of climate change.
The moment we begin to talk about climate change, educate people about climate change, I think we are making steps towards a better future. Like Marcy said, we remain hopeful, but that hope must be translated into conversations with people. People must be talked to. People must be given hope. We must remind them that there is a different reality beyond this. There is a different possibility and future beyond this. And religion will play a critical role in ensuring that that is done. Sangomas, ministers of the gospel, everybody must begin to talk about these things. And then as we begin to talk about this, I think then we are headed for a change.
Myself, I really am very grateful to be given such an opportunity to air our own story and to see that we still have got other people who still care to hear our own stories, our real stories. So thank you for that. And let us continue to work together. This is what I can say. Let us continue to work together. Let us continue to have these conversations. And I know that because that we have had this conversation, you can even go and, you can also go and discuss with other people. You'd find that other people, they will be surprised.
Thank you for creating this space, and we hope that we'll be able to continue conversating over these issues and creating a better future for the world. I think my words would be that each one of us must be responsible. It's not a blame game, but it's an issue of we all must take charge of what we have caused. Each one of us has contributed to climate change. I'm happy that we are able to talk over this platform today, because if I came to the USA, I would have sinned against the environment in one or the other because of my huge carbon footprint. But this has enabled me to conversate with you and Marcy there with a minimal impact, little or no minimal impact to the environment. And I think going forward, we must encourage such conversations where if we are talking about the environment, let us be true to the environment. If we are able to minimize the impacts, I think it must be a personal thing. A lot of times we want to talk about issues of climate change, but the question I ask myself is, what am I doing about it? When we sit in conferences, the question must be, what am I doing for the environment? Most of the time, we love to talk about it. We love to condemn the superpowers and everybody. But the question I have is, what am I doing? If I go to a shopping mall, do I refuse the plastic bag that I'm given? Or do I just gladly take it as many as I can? What I simply want to say is, let each one of us be responsible for the environment. Regardless of our religious backgrounds, I feel the earth is a common place that we have. Allow me to say she's our mother and we're supposed to take care of her. Each one of us, regardless of where we come from and what we believe in, the earth is what we have in common, and each one of us must treasure the earth. Thank you for this conversation.